This briefing focuses on China. The goal of this presentation is to inform you on various aspects of that country in preparation for your upcoming investment decision. There are many aspects of a country that may be relevant to potential investment decisions, and the various languages of a country is the first of such issues. Similarities and differences in languages can have a substantial impact on a firm's ability to communicate with local customers, suppliers, and even employees. While Brazil and China have distinctly different dominant languages, it's also true that a language reasonably common to both countries, English, is widespread and growing rapidly in China. The Economist reported in 2006 that up to 1/5 of the Chinese population is learning English. And Gordon Brown, the former British Prime Minister, estimated that the total English-speaking population in China will outnumber the native speakers in the rest of the world in 2 decades. It is also not widely appreciated that the large-scale migration of Chinese to Brazil began in 1949, and that between 1989 and 1999, about 100,000 people from mainland China have migrated to São Paulo. A second issue which can influence a firm's ability to conduct business in a foreign country is the dominant religion. Religion has a potentially powerful impact on people's value systems and can influence how they behave and interact with one another. While Brazil and China differ in terms of their dominant religions, Christianity and Buddhism respectively, Brazilians may not realize that Christianity has gone through several cycles of popularity in China since first being introduced in 635 AD, and it is once again on the increase. Independent estimates of the number of practicing Christians in China range from 40 million to 54 million people. A third factor which may influence a company's ability to conduct business in a foreign country is the level of industrial development. This not only influences the cost of labor in a country and the consumption patterns, but it also arguably shapes the attitudes, values, and behaviors of the population in general. In terms of the level of economic and industrial development, Brazil and China are very similar. Whether you measure it in terms of the GDP per capita, the prominence of the service sector, the per capita consumption of energy, or the ownership of consumer goods, such as televisions and telephones, both countries are in the middle ground, well ahead of the third world countries and rapidly closing the gap on the OECD countries. A fourth important issue is the similarities and/or differences in the educational systems of countries. Similar to Brazil, due to a scarcity of resources allocated to higher education, student numbers in China decrease sharply at higher levels. However, like Brazil, China has recently implemented major reforms in education to increase the access and produce more skilled labor. Both countries are focusing on improving their education. A fifth critical issue with respect to doing business in another country is similarities and/or differences in the legal and political systems. Both China and Brazil have 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. In China, the President and the Vice President are elected by the National People's Congress for a 5-year term, very similar to Brazil, where the President and Vice Presidents are elected by popular vote for 4-year terms. In both countries, they can be re-elected for a second term. The National People's Congress is similar to Brazil's House of Deputies, and members are elected by the people. In China, as in Brazil, the legal system is based on case law, where each case stands on its own. A sixth, but potentially more subtle issue, is similarities and/or differences in actual business practices. This can involve simple but potentially embarrassing issues, such as how to properly greet people and attitudes towards time. While Brazil and China have many different business practices, there are more similarities than most people assume. Business in China is based on personal relationships, known as guangxi. You may have to make several trips to China to achieve your objectives. Chinese business people prefer to establish a strong relationship before closing a deal, and business meetings often start with personal conversations, including questions about your family or children. Also, much like in Brazil, personal relationships and the emotions that are generated from those relationships drive negotiations and problem solving. Also similar to Brazil, eating and the etiquette around eating are highly important in China. Lastly, contrary to common opinion, the Chinese do not typically bow. Instead, a nod of greeting or a handshake is typical. The seventh and final issue is the broader set of cultural values which are commonly shared by a large portion of a country's population. Countries can vary in terms of the emphasis placed on individuality versus conformity, the attitudes towards uncertainty and ambiguity, the attitudes towards authority and social inequities, and not least, attitudes towards how gender roles are allocated in society. China and Brazil have similar cultures in many ways. Both countries emphasize the group far more than the individual-focused countries in Northern Europe. Both countries also respect authority and treat upper-level managers with deference. Uncertainty and ambiguity are not comfortable to either Chinese or Brazilians. Lastly, both countries have relatively traditional views on gender roles. This concludes our brief presentation on China.